Hi everyone, my name is Maria Toka. I'm a freelance graphic designer, and in this video I'm going to give you 5 tips to improve your poster design. I hope this will help you design something that you actually like instead of spending hours in front of your screen and ending up being disappointed in everything you created and hoping that no one will ever see it. We try to avoid that situation, right? It's mostly based on the most common mistakes that I've noticed when I was running my poster design course. Yeah, I've been doing it multiple times, so I've witnessed a lot of similar mistakes that people do. So without further ado, let's get started. And the first tip is to think about the purpose of your poster before you start designing. Yeah, the purpose matters more than you think, because as you know, graphic design is not an exact science. There are no clearly right or wrong answers. And you may ask, okay, if there are no rules, can I just pick any font I personally like and just go with it? Yes, but no, not exactly. You need to consider the context. For example, if you design a sale or a special offer promo poster for a shop, maybe you shouldn't use that delicate, classy, elegant, thin font, because it's probably supposed to grab attention instantly, whereas it might be okay for an art exhibition poster or even for the same product, but when it's already in that shop and you don't need to attract random people, a target audience is already there. Yeah, even for elegant, feminine beauty products, even for luxury brands, just because you simply can't see it from afar. Any thin font just disappears, and we need to consider that. Target audience is everything. I know it's so boring, everyone is talking about this, but it determines everything in your design. The amount of information that you put in the poster will depend on the size of this poster, because if it's a small Instagram post, you probably shouldn't put so much information in it. Or if it's a poster that is covering half of the wall, it has a lot of space, and yeah, it can fit a lot more, I guess. Another important factor, the amount of time that you're gonna interact with the poster. The potential viewer. There's no point putting too much information on a billboard, even though it's big, just because you have less than a second to quickly glance at it from afar. A viewer won't have any time to read through the text, so just one short title is more than enough. And if you want to ignore all that, just to use a poster to express your personality, your style, and everything like that, I would reconsider calling it graphic design. I would rather see it as art, and you will be an artist in that case. That's what differentiates an artist from a designer. The second tip would be, when designing a poster, follow the principle from general to specific. So what that means, that before you get into details, such as choosing fonts, overlay textures, playing with filters, or adding any sort of additional elements, at first just choose where you're gonna place all your main elements, what the relationship between them is like. Create that visual flow. Ideally, from a distance, a viewer should be able to understand the main mood, theme, or a key message, even without that extra fluff. And only after that, when you have that strong foundation, you will add all those additional elements. And the wrong way to do it, you don't have to choose the specific font right from the start. It's enough just to choose the direction, like what kind of font. You can just choose, okay, I'm gonna use that thin script font here, and just use any script font just for now, for that initial stage. And after the entire draft, the layout will be ready, you will choose the font more carefully, and you will start choosing the exact font that you want to use, because otherwise you're risking wasting so much time by spending hours and finding that perfect font that you want to use. Okay, maybe you end up liking that font really much, but at the end you have no idea if it'll work with other elements or not. And how do you even know if it's perfect if you don't see the context of where it's placed, because you haven't designed anything else yet? So yeah, my advice is just don't get stuck on refining those cute titles, or maybe not cute, but something that requires time, a lot of iteration, applying multiple filters, experimenting. I get that it's a really fun process, but only after you have your main layout set, and then you can play around with those elements. And the third tip would be setting the hierarchy from the start. This is an essential step that so many designers are skipping. So what it means, it's just is deciding what people should see first, second, third, etc. in your poster. And some people think, oh, it's obvious. Of course, the title is the biggest. It means that it's the most important thing, and all the other text is smaller, then it's less important, and that's it. But there is no hierarchy in that text. No, you need to decide the second level, the third level, maybe the fourth. You don't want to create too many levels because it might be too overwhelming and not much of a difference between them. I would say 5 max would be enough, but it depends on the amount of information. But I would say more than 5, it's already quite confusing and challenging for a viewer. So be careful with that. And each level should have the same font size for the text that is on this level. And if you're designing a poster for a client, it might be challenging to set that hierarchy because they don't give you any precise instructions for that. Or even worse, when they say everything should be important, everything should be highlighted. This is important, the date is important, the venue is important, the lineup is important. This is like, we need to highlight everything, and also our logo should be big enough. Like, if you highlight everything, nothing is highlighted, and the viewer is not going to notice, it's not going to remember anything from your poster. So you have to assign those pieces of information with the roles of the main character, secondary, third level, fourth level, etc. You can't make everything the same, but if you're trying to make everything different with different fonts, different decorative elements, it's just going to distract the viewer and overwhelm them. It's not going to highlight every bit of information. Okay, and the fourth tip is that you need to make sure that all the elements are connected. There are multiple different ways of how you can do it, and the simplest way is probably by overlapping them. So they're literally connected because one is stacked on top of the other. But this is not the only way, especially when it comes to the text. Sometimes you can't overlap it because it needs to be readable. So what do you do in those cases? You can make them connected by making them in the same style. If it's a text, it can be the same font or the same style of the font, or the same font but something is slightly different. It can be the same color, the same shape, the same background for this text. I don't know why I'm speaking specifically about the text. It applies to images as well, or any other elements like abstract shapes on your poster. Or you can use some additional small elements in between those big ones that you need to connect. And those small ones, they would serve as the mediator between them. I hope that makes sense. I will try to show an example of what I mean so you will understand. So sometimes those additional details, they're being used not just for decoration, but just to connect the key elements with each other. And just in general, make sure that all your key elements are on the same team. They are not competing for the viewer's attention. They are supporting each other. And that's why hierarchy helps so much, because it helps them not to compete, because everyone agrees that this big element is level 1. It's the focal point. These two secondary ones, well, look at them right after that big one. The third level comes third, and so on. You don't want to design your title is super eye-catching and interesting to look at. At the same time, you will have the image, also very loud and eye-catching, and then another piece of text that has its own tricks on it, and there is nothing in common between them. They're all placed in different areas, so the viewer would be overwhelmed, like you don't really know what to look at first and why those elements are even on the same poster. Like, they're so different. Everyone is trying to show how important they are, and there is no really a focal point here. Yeah, I know that I showed you some examples previously of posters with no focal points, especially in Japanese design. It's prevalent, but they use quite a different approach. They create rhythm by repeating a lot of elements, a lot of features of the elements, like for example, the same color is repeated across poster. That's why even without a focal point, we still feel that connection and cohesiveness across the poster, and that's really important. And the fifth tip would be to think about your font size contrast. It's actually a big deal in poster design. It massively helps set up the hierarchy. If all your text is the same size, then nothing stands out, right? And it's much harder to highlight something with other tools. The size is the easiest. By just making something big, it stands out straight away. In most cases, I mean. But if everything of the same size, size, it may look flat and kind of boring. Actually, I would say the same size is not that boring if it's done on purpose. The worst thing when the size is different, but not really different. You can't really tell if that was on purpose or was it a mistake. So you want to distinguish the levels of hierarchy as clearly as possible. If your title is of one size, the next hierarchy level should be twice smaller, ideally, or even more than twice. And the next one twice smaller, and so on. So you can clearly see that it's the next level. It's not kind of the same. So don't do this thing when you can't really tell if they are different or not. It looks confusing and doesn't help your hierarchy. I hope that makes sense. So those were my tips for designing posters. Obviously, I've got a lot more recommendations for you about it. Just let me know if you want me to dive deeper into common poster design mistakes, and I'll film another video about it. I hope this was helpful and it'll encourage you to create something that you're actually proud of, and you can include that in your portfolio or use it in any other way that you want. If you liked this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel to see more. That would be much appreciated. And thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye!